Please join me in welcoming the creators of Top of the Lake, writer-director Jane Campion. We also have co-writer Gerard Lee, co-director Ariel Kleiman, and one of the film stars, Englert. Thank you all for being here tonight. Since we have you all here, I thought we would start by talking about collaboration. Yeah. Well, filmmaking is, everybody says it's a collaborative endeavor, but I think some filmmakers are better at collaboration than others. And I think you're somebody who's been very generous and very loyal to your collaborators over the years. You can see a lot of actors have worked with you multiple times. You've worked with, cinematographers over and over again. And Gerard is somebody you've worked with since the 1980s. Ari, I know this is your first collaboration, so maybe you can talk a little bit about your relationship with... You can both talk about this.
I think it would be interesting to hear from the collaborators.
Okay, all right, as long as you...
Probably more revealing.
Okay, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, you're right, Dennis. Jane is an amazing collaborator. She makes space. It doesn't feel like it at the time. But I've seen her make space for so many different kinds of people that I would find difficult to spend even 5 minutes in the same room as. Jane will be sort of, yes, come in, within a few minutes she's got them not only relaxed but being somebody else as well, and leads them into the most amazing emotional states, and they trust her. Yeah, I don't know how she does it. But I have, got the benefit of it for many years, and it's been a very special part of my life, the creative companionship that we've had.
Ari?
Yeah, for a director, it's very rare to collaborate so intimately with another director. For me personally, as a young director, I feel like you have this... or a lot of the issues of being a young director, you want to control everything, and you because you're so green, you it's very hard to give up control because you're kind of scared. But Jane has this amazing, I guess through all her experiences, she taught me, the art of collaboration, and she has this real magical quality of empowering all her collaborators and making them feel loved, and encouraging them to personalise the work. And I think that's part of kind of the magic of working with Jane.
And I guess from my point of view, I think it's pretty easy, because I think whatever you do yourself, you tend to think like, yeah, okay. But when someone else does something and it's surprising to you, I just love, what Gerard has contributed to the scripts and his jokes and the humour that he's brought. That, Gerard seems like an agendaless human, so he doesn't seem to care if we get it done on time. That's the only sort of difficult thing. It's really hard to kind of, put a rocket under him.
That's part. Well, time would be a part of an agenda, so you've got to free yourself of that as well.
But I end up feeling a lot more energised through the collaboration process than if I was doing it by myself, because it's sort of like whenever you come up with yourself, it's that same thing of tickling yourself, It's just not as funny. And the same with Ari. Ari, when I see what Ari does with the scenes, you could think that I'd be, or Gerard and I would be very protective and thinking, I hope he doesn't wreck the scene. Occasionally I feel like that about a scene I've written with a lot of care or something. But then, just, I might even go to set that day and see what he does do, like get in his way a little bit. But when I see what he does do and the care that he brings and his own beautiful, effortless Russian mathematic brain, I'm just so thrilled. I mean, it's different than what I would do, and I would say better because it's not mine. I love it. Yeah. So I think the key is to, for me anyway, it's just lonely by yourself. It's much more fun with friends.
Alice, maybe you can talk a little bit about this. I think you have a special perspective on this. You have obviously a personal and professional working relationship with Jane, your mother, and you were in a short film of hers more than 10 years ago, right? The Water Diary, which we're showing here next week.
Oh, really? Cool. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think you put it really well. I think we are just like a whole group of back scratchers. Just kind of like, I think we do it by ourselves, except that it isn't the same, is it? And that's how we all end up kind of playing and trying to satisfy some kind of itch we've got. And I think you do that really well. I think you're genuinely, like, just on the topic of collaboration, I think that you're a genuine rebel, which means that you're always curious and you're always looking for something that you really feel is kind of honest, and that can be funny and it can be sad too. So I think that's like that is exciting and kind of bonding, and that does kind of bring a cause to, like, whenever we're doing something, it feels like, I don't know, there's going to be a rumpus, and it's nice.
Jane, do you want to talk a little bit about having Alice in mind for this role in this work that is very much about mothers and daughters? You said that this part is very much not based on her and on your relationship with her, but obviously, I don't know, are there other complications or sort of difficulties in sort of putting her through some pretty difficult scenes, I think, as you'll see as the series progresses?
Well, when I was writing it, I didn't find it complicated. It felt like, actually, kind of parting gift to my daughter, that she had spent so much time with me focusing on my work, and I wanted her to be a direct part of it, again, like we did when we did the short film. It was so wonderful to see the children be the focus of everyone's attention, and they really loved it. Like, they were the little soldiers on the front line when we did the Water Diary. And when we did the maths and we worked out that Robin Griffin's character or child would be the right age for Alice to play, or she could play that age, 17, turning 18. I was just really excited because I thought, oh, great, I can write a part for Alice, and that would, I wanted to make it a part that was going to use her qualities, and, that was part of what inspired me, and, and also challenge her beyond that. I think Alice is really good at grounding material, but, what she has to do with Mary, and I know you've seen the scene where she meets Robin Griffin for the first time, her mother, and, that's such a complex piece. For any actor to play, especially a young actor. So it was really great for me to have her to work for. But however, as the story went on, it got more difficult. I started to feel really anxious when it came around to the, actually making it happen, and started to really quite know that I should actually give one of my favourite episodes away to Ari, because episode 4, when it all comes really crunching down. Because I thought that I just wouldn't be able to get it to do repeat takes, The mother part of me would be just wanting to protect her from the experience. And, Gerard and I wrote this Top of the Lake really with the focus on being parents, and, what that means as your kids grow up. And, of course, Alice's own experience isn't the same as Mary's, but, cumulatively we know and have heard of it's a difficult time, and painful and important time, I think. And it seemed to get our juices going. We really felt that protective vibe that we could translate through to Robin Griffin and to Nicole's character Julia and to the dad as well.
We spent a lot of time talking about what hurts us, what worries us, and how to deal with things, you know. And that what we were going through then is both of our kids were at the age where they were starting to become legal entities on their own, so they're out of your control. You can't sort of make them do anything, and you've just got to hope that you've given them enough programming for them to survive, you know. And it's a pretty scary period, and it's an unusual topic to pursue in a story too, I think, you know.
Well, you can't make them do what you want unless you cast them in something you're making.
Touché.
I wanted to a question for you and Gerard about writing the new season and picking up this great character Robin Griffin that you developed in season 1, but putting her, picking up with her several years later, and also putting her in a very different environment. If you could talk about how this took shape.
Yeah, well, I was inspired also to film. I felt like we had spent quite a lot of time exploring the themes of the wilderness and paradise, and in the first series. And when I thought of do another one there, it felt like a bit like Midsummer's Night Murders or something. Just like more bodies, more. It just didn't feel very interesting to me, and I was really interested in exploring something to do with the sex industry in Australia. They don't really have one in Queenstown. I tried to find out. They have a lap dancing club or something like that, but not like Sydney. And so I was, and then Gerard and I had to research it as well. And it was I wanted to do that kind of thing. And I also love Sydney because I've lived there for really most of my life, and I love the ocean, how it's surrounded by ocean, and the harbour as well, and that, I guess the ocean is the kind of wilderness of that edges Sydney, and it's beautiful and it's feminine to me as well. It's all salty and watery and uterine-y. And I do think this whole series is very much about, as you see, as it evolves, as it goes on, it's very much about reproduction and women's private journey. And I've been reflecting since even we talked yesterday. When people always say, "Oh, how come there aren't more women filmmakers or women doing this or that?" And you think that women are actually really busy. In ways that maybe not seem so conspicuous, but making the whole world. I mean, there is not one person here that didn't come through a woman. So they've got this other job that they, are doing all the time, and then I think that is one of the reasons why there aren't so many film directors. I mean, it's not to excuse it, but you have to put it all together.
Yes, I agree. But I often watch Midsummer Murders because I'm at home on a Saturday night with nothing to do, and it comes on. And what always amazes me is it's such a beautiful English village, but every week someone gets killed. And I'm sort of thinking, how could that be? They all seem so happy, and wouldn't you be with those lovely gardens and everything, But still there's a fury there. And the other funny thing is that every week the detective actually solves it, works through all those clues within a week. It's all solved as well, unlike in real life. And yet that model was so persuasive with me that I wanted to stay in the Queenstown area and continue the story that we had going there, because I love the mountains and the lake. And I thought a few more people could easily be killed there without upsetting anyone. And that we'd be able to solve the problem as well. But Jane doesn't think like that. She wanted to break new ground and also go towards a meaningful theme, and just search through a couple of other issues. And And I think that's what makes number 2, is series 2, not look like it's a milking of a formula that we pulled off successfully the first time. One of my film students rang me when he heard I was doing it and said, "Oh mate, I'm disgusted with you. Just milking that formula that you got at work once, it's not going to work again. I'm not surprised at you, but I'm really surprised Jane would do something like that." I went, "Yeah, okay."
Jane, you mentioned reproduction and parenthood as themes that run through this series. I think what's really striking in this season is something that's I think been running through your work from the very beginning is not just female characters but relationships between women. You see that in, I think the series is like a series of like just remarkable like duets. You see that great scene in the second episode with Alice and Elisabeth Moss at the coffee shop. But there's so many of them with Alice and Nicole Kidman, and with Elisabeth Moss and Gwendoline Christie, as you see more and more throughout as the series progresses. Is that something that you consciously wanted to develop in this work?
Yes, I mean Gwendoline and Elizabeth's relationship is, I saw it as a kind of sub-story of the whole story, and one where they would kind of, as you can see, they're quite antagonistic in a way right now, but that somehow that it would be worked, that they would, actually resolve that and would be there for each other and kind of swap capacities. And, love each other. Because I think that's, what I feel about my women friends. I don't know if I've had that many opportunities to cuddle up with them lately. But, it has been a big part of my life, cuddling up with my girlfriends and, licking wounds.
I wanted a question for Ari and you about directing. Do you do anything differently when you're making a work that is going to be seen in many different ways, many different contexts? It's airing on television, but it's also, like the first season, did show at a lot of film festivals. So people will be seeing it in many different ways. Do you adjust your visual style in any way for keeping in mind that big screen, small screen, and all those things?
Yeah, I mean, Ari, I remember Ari saying to me, Jane, we ought to talk about how we're going to shoot this, do you remember?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Well, I was like, how are we going to make it all look the same?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is that, actually Ari's directing 4 of the episodes, and, we're concerned about keeping some, consistency. Yeah, thank you.
But I don't think I did. I don't think either of us changed our style in terms of making it for TV.
Did we talk about like a few more closer mid shots? I don't know.
I was kind of just vibing off the script really, and the script is a very interior series. It's a lot of meaty conversation scenes, and that's where all the fireworks comes from. So I think naturally it kind of evolved into something that was more framed around mid-shots.
I mean, I always think, I guess, about atmospheres, and they're really important to me, and having the story pull or give an opportunity for an atmosphere to be powerful or strong, with the landscape as well. We both love that.
There were moments where I was like, this feels like TV, let's try change it. Like just having, I think we tried to bring out kind of our filmic styles to it as much as possible.
Yeah, I don't think we thought there is a sense of relaxing for me a little bit when you think, I don't know how good this is, but it's good for TV. And which you don't, with features, it feels like there's this real weight sometimes when you do it, that it's got to be so perfect, it's got to be really, really good. Whereas I think there's a freeing in a way when you're doing television, or when you're doing something that's primarily created as a long form story that's going to be mostly seen on people's smaller screens. that, you know, it's about storytelling. It's about really involving people in characters and their lives and their world, and you know, that's sort of really what I think about mostly. And then our skills just as storytellers, you know, visually, you know, that's why we chose Ari, because he's got such a beautiful visual style, and you know, I do my best. Yeah, I don't know that, you know, like we use all the same equipment as, you know, we are filmmakers, so it's really not much difference. I guess the schedule's a little bit different, not that much different. We have to go a bit faster, we have 2 cameras.
It's not written in a way that's built around commercial or ad breaks. It's kind of written as one 6-hour story in chapters.
I mean, one of the things I really did think about when we wrote this one and talked to Gerard about was that I really wanted big chunks, you know, like didn't want it to have tiny little scenes, you know. I wanted the scenes to be really long and sustained as much as possible, or whenever we could. And I think it was just something that I, you know, think was a good challenge for us writing, and a good challenge to the whole style, you know, of these kinds of stories and to directing.
I want to write a film one day where everyone wears a black skivvy and sort of grey wall behind them, and everything's just focused on how good my dialogue is.
I'm going to ask one more question before we open it up to the audience. It's actually a question I didn't get to ask you last night, Jane. We talked a lot about, I think, many of your films, but we never really got around to Bright Star, which is one of my favorites of your films, and it's also your last theatrical feature, the thing you made immediately before, you know, moving on to Top of the Lake. And I feel there's often these through lines through your work, you know, one thing carrying over to another. I'm wondering if there was something from Bright Star in particular that you brought to Top of the Lake.
Well, before I did Bright Star, I did The Water Diary, and one of the impulses to do The Water Diary, which is a little United Nations short film, kind of an ode to childhood, was the opportunity to like rethink the way I was making films. And I had about a 4-year break, and I started watching old movies in that time, which I'd never done when I first got into filmmaking, because I sort of hit the ground running in the 70s, and there was just so much to see that, you know, I thought, well, I don't want to see old movies. But by the time, you know, I was in the 90s or 200s, I did want to see old movies because there wasn't as much good new movies. And I started watching Bresson, and I fell in love with him, and I fell in love with A Man Escaped. I remember just watching it and finding out how tense it was, how focused and concentrated, and how real it was, how true it felt. And it really inspired me to have that faith that things could be really interesting if you barely do anything.
Even more intense in some ways.
In some ways, yeah, because you trust it more. And so I changed my whole thinking and started experimenting. You know, like the image for the first shot of the little short film was just these 2 dreary ponies in a paddock. And, you know, I just loved how, I don't know, plain and nothing it was, like in a drought-ridden, you know, 2 depressed ponies. That's it. And instead of trying to get them running around with their manes and things happening or stuff like that, I just, you know, yeah. So this is where it's gone.
All right, I think we have mics. We have mic runners. So yeah, if you raise your hand, we will get to you. Yes, there.
I am a social worker and I work with survivors of violence, and you mentioned research that you did for this work. So I was wondering if you could speak to what kind of research questions you had and how you managed with what you found.
The research was, when we had, you know, I guess the main research that we did was with the police and with talking to various people about surrogacy, people in the legal business. In Australia, you know, professors, lawyers, and also talking to the 2 agencies that front the sex industries for the sex workers, which is Scarlet Alliance in Sydney and SWAP. And they're run by sex workers or ex-sex workers, and they had a sort of a fairly sceptical view of our project. I think it's even in the story when one of them said, "Oh my God, what, can't you think of something better, a dead prostitute?" yeah, okay. We sort of apologised, saying, "Oh no, it's, you know, we're a crime story." But I think she had a point, and you know, we learnt a lot actually about what our expectations were compared to what was really happening, or also what they were trying to. I mean, you know, it's aspirational. They were trying to improve the images and the self-esteem of people in the industry, and I think it's a great thing. And they put us in contact. SWAT put us in contact with a Thai brothel, and we paid, and we talked to the women for. You know, not that long, really, a couple of times. Gerard and I hung around all afternoon and talked to the Mama San and her long-time, you know, assistant. And they just were so breathtakingly honest with us about what they thought, what they did. We just wrote it all down. What they thought of the guys, you know, how they got into the work, how the business runs, you know, the detail of how people come in, what it's like. You know, like the stars of their place were the lady boys, and they were treated with a lot of respect because she said it's quite painful for them. And she also said that a lot of married men like them. She kept saying that a lot. And
but I don't think that's true, actually.
We just we really liked them, and it. I mean, we weren't in the sex rooms, but we asked them what happened in the rooms, and we saw, you know, people coming and going, and people coming in and writing their names down and how much, you know, they'd made, and just the daily running of the place and the lunches that she put on. She was very particular about, you know, cooking good food for everybody, and the risks that were involved in the industry, and that someone had died from an overdose, and that was something she really wanted, you know, people to realise the dangers of opioids. And you then went Ari as well, you know.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
We went to a brothel too. Yeah, I was shocked how domestic it was and how transactional. It was. It wasn't sexy at all. It was. Yeah. What was your impression?
Oh, I mean, honestly, like, actually doing this series has, you know, I was having a legit conversation with friends recently about the sex industry and sex work, and, you know, specifically in Australia, because of course it's legal there, and I really kind of changed my mind. I mean, I really just didn't have it in my mind before, and what's changed is that now it's in my mind, and I don't really have a problem with people who want to work in the sex industry or want to be a sex worker. It's more the sort of secrecy that actually was disturbing to me, or feeling like it was something mysterious or beyond, or that I couldn't be a part of or know about, and also something that people don't really feel that they talk about, you know, that it is in a very open way. And that's why I was uncomfortable, because I had no idea what I was even thinking about. And actually, I just don't think that anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, since we've made the film and that sex workers have become aware that, you know, we did some research, we talked to people. I've had one write to me, and I'm now on a very long kind of friendship with her, writing back and forth, and we're going to go and have coffee when I get back. And I find her absolutely amazing. You know, she's sort of like a Buddhist sex worker, and she just explained to me quite a few things more than even I understood at the beginning. So I think, you know, one of the advantages of, you know, starting a project like this is that you get to learn a lot of things that you might not have, and it's really quite hard of a 60-plus woman to get themselves into a brothel, because they really don't want you there. And you know, we had to pay to be there. And they're very suspicious, because, you know, they know that within the general society people look down on them and have, you know, so they're defensive.
Well, the way people talk about sex is kind of still quite odd and got a lot of rules. So,
Well, I mean,
it
you hear
makes
the
sense.
young guys talking about it too. I mean, that
Yeah.
came straight off the online discussions and the way that the guys actually review the different sex workers at different brothels. I mean, we were just flabbergasted.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really appreciative of what I felt really lucky actually to learn more.
One of the themes of this series is connection between people, and how do you know that you've got a connection? What does it feel like? How long is it going to last? How subtle is it? And so a lot of the relationships are circle around that idea. The mother and daughter one, and the two police women as they're getting to know each other, and the boy in it who has the girlfriend experience with the sex worker. He has the idea that he is making contact, and well, it's up to you, I guess, to wonder whether she is feeling the same thing. But there's all these different shades of contact between people, and it was one of the themes that we talked about a lot, wasn't it? I thought that was the thing that I came away with, How do you know that you're known by someone, and, how do you know that you're loved by someone? How do you know that you're feeling contact?
What I really like
It's
about
always having a girlfriend experience with you.
I'm glad to find that out. No, I honestly had no idea we were doing that.
I like that this. I think Top of the Lake's great because it's really grey. This.
Thank you,
this
my dear daughter.
No, I do I can say one thing and also completely see another perspective staring right at me, in this. So I don't know. I'm still thinking. I don't know.
Yeah, and the police were interesting too. We also had a lot of trouble getting into the police because they don't like being observed at all in Australia. I mean, I just want to do a shout out to my darling friend Susanna Moore, who's in the audience tonight, and who's the author of In the Cut, and who became a really darling friend. Thanks for coming. But, when we were doing research for In the Cut, my research didn't get close to what hers was. I did meet detectives and was able to travel around with them and was able to sit in the precincts and, all night and watch people and just observe. Well, they just did not want us doing that, but we did meet this wonderful woman called Christie McDonald, who was head of the Newtown detectives, and she was just completely brilliant. She loved our story. She loved helping us in every which way. She showed the girls how to shoot. She had the sexiest sort of lineup of detectives actually working in the office, and who had the tightest suits on you've ever seen. Like, they're real prima donnas, and they really do fight all day long, sort of play fight, like grab each other and throw each other on the ground. And
remember, we asked them what is the truest depiction of the police force in any film or TV show, and they all said Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You got that vibe when you were in there.
Yeah. Here? Especially about film and television.
So sorry I said that. Sounds like
That's really mean, Jane.
clever people. Oh dear. Anyway, maybe I just said people, or I don't know. It sounds weird.
You would have said it.
Anyway, I don't. I think what I mean is that there's more freedom in television, and as far as I'm concerned, filmmakers are always looking for that. And when you make a film, there's so much agony and wondering what audiences might want to go and see, whereas somehow you don't have to make that same calculation when it comes to like these long form series that air on television first. On the whole, yeah, and it seems that the television audience in a way are a lot more. I mean, you know, can you imagine this coming out as a film? I think the critics would just go kill us, you know. But the television critics are a lot more open, I would say, than film critics. Wouldn't you agree with that, Dennis? Or do you agree? What?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yes, I think you're right. Take another. Yes, over there.
Yeah, the writing in this show is just so strong, and I guess I wanted to know, it's kind of a broad question, but when you're writing, how do you balance between a story that's realistic and a story that's good or interesting, and do you think there's a difference?
That's an interesting question. Story that's realistic as compared to one that's interesting. Is there a difference? I don't know. I think it's the way that you look at the story and enter into it that is the difference between it just being realistic and not interesting. I mean, I can go and just sit and watch Frederick Wiseman's documentaries, you know, which tell a kind of shambly story, which I find them so relaxing and believable that I love them. So, you know, there's a big range there. I mean, yeah, I think it's, I don't know the answer to it. I'm sorry, it's just something you meditate on a lot.
I know the answer, Jane. I know the answer.
Cool.
Actually, Jane and I discussed this issue quite a lot. I thought, you know, Jane, something will come up, an idea will come up, and I'll go, oh, you know, it's not fitting into my idea of what a story is, which I have very set ideas about. And Jane calls it a formula, and I'm happy to have it. And Jane's argument against my form is that, you know, this is how something happens in real life, and that's how we're going to do it, and it's going to be like this. And I just hate it that it's going to ruin the end of an act, or, you know, it's going to ruin the point that I'm hoping to make at that stage. And it seems to me like there's a constant struggle between reality and story that you have to have all the time, you know. And you've got to wiggle your way through and win each moment or each movement of the story in such a way that it carries sort of an integrity with it, and a sense that you're actually in touch with your environment, and, you know, that you're speaking for yourself or a community of people. And that's the most pain that I go through on the other side of the table to Jane, you know. Jane's got some kind of intuitive thing about it, but for me it's a real pain in the bum, you know.
I think the other word we use a lot when we're making it is instead of if it feels real, does it feel true? And each film or each story has its own internal truth, I think. And the internal truth of Top of the Lake sometimes is quite surreal, and it's not necessarily realistic, but through that surrealism, I think it lands on something very truthful.
But I do think it is like not a simple answer. It's sort of something you meditate on a lot and turn over in your head, and it's a good one to have in your head if you're a writer. You know, and it's really hard to think of a story, if it could be called a story, that's realistic and not interesting, you know, as well.
Okay. Last question.
There's the two guys who are out.
Yeah, that's a lot better than the last series. No, I guess we're not in the business of admirable characters or in general. You know, I don't know that, you know, there is something lovable and wonderful about Robin though I don't know if she's exactly admirable. But there's that little light she carries. But, you know, I don't know that we do admirable characters, because you know, I think when a character's set up like that, you know, I start to feel a little bit suspicious, really. You know, I think most people want to be good or something, but we've seen a pretty barefaced version of them. I think that you met them, they look better, you know, in the street. You know, they said, oh, hello, I'm blah, blah. They would put on a bit of front. We're seen behind, you know, the behind face of them. You know, I guess the guys the nerds that talk about the women and score them and things like that. I mean, and, you know, for me, I actually love them as well. So I have you know, when I think about all the admirable men I see in many detective stories, you know, fake presidents, you know, that sort of thing. I'm just like really doubtful. And that we've got two is pretty gorgeous, and you know, her boss is pretty nice as well. And Brett's a nice human.
Liam, her brother, Liam.
Oh, the brother, well, yeah, he's trying to improve himself. We might seem to be scratching a bit of a bottom of a barrel, but I don't know, yeah.
But I think all the characters evolve, and actually, hopefully, as you see the whole season, there are some surprises. Yeah.
So you can tune in on Monday and Tuesday to see the remaining 4 hours. If you stick around, the next film that we're showing is Sweetie, which Gerard and Jane co-wrote. It's Jane's first theatrical feature from 1989. And come back and see all of her films that we're showing here through September 17th. Thanks all for coming, and thank you.
Thanks very much, Gemma.